and welcome viewers. I am Pia and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump will address the United Nations General Assembly in New York on the 23rd of September, marking his first speech of his second term. The Israeli military has declared Gaza City as a dangerous combat zone amid plans to capture the city in its entirety after nearly 2 years of conflict. The recently announced daily tactical pauses for aid distribution will no longer apply as the move signals further intensification of military operations in the area. US Senator Roger Wicker, chairman of the powerful Senate Armed Services Committee, has now declared that Taiwan has the right to reserve self-determination and be free during a meeting with President Lai Ching in Taipei. The statement comes amidst his first visit while US remains Taiwan's significant international supporter. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has stated that India and Japan will shape the Asian century as Japan has announced a $68 billion investment. Modi and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba have also highlighted plans to double the number of Indian nationals in Japan, boost trade beyond its current 20 billion capacity and further expand partnership in semiconductors, AI and high-speed rail. European Union defence ministers have arrived for an informal meeting to discuss regional security and defence cooperation. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas and defence ministers from Denmark, Lithuania, Estonia and Germany have provided opening comments. The session marks the start of discussions on joint military and strategic initiatives. US President Donald Trump says he is unhappy but not surprised by Russian strikes on Kiev and has urged both sides to end the war. This comes after the strike on Kiev yesterday, which killed at least 23 people. The UN Security Council has approved the final extension for UN peacekeepers in Lebanon with withdrawal scheduled for 31st December 2026. The vote comes amid pressure from Israel and the United States. US Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has criticized the CDC after its chief's removal, calling for an overhaul as he claims the agency failed during COVID-19 and has questioned its past health claims. Well, viewers, those were the headlines and our top focus this hour. In a strong push for economic and strategic ties, Japan has now pledged major investment in India. Speaking at the Japan-India Economic Forum in Tokyo, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has hailed the growing partnership with India. He was joined by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi as both leaders witnessed the signing of several cooperation agreements between Indian and Japanese companies. Let's in fact listen in to what both leaders have said.
本日両国の企業の間で多数の協力文書が結ばれたことは、日本がインドに一層投資をし、連携を強化していく決意の表れであり、両国を中心とした強靭なサプライチェーンの構築が着実に進んでいる証。日本とインドは、日本の新幹線がインドの大地を駆ける、このような目標を共有をし、ムンバイ・アーメダバード間高速鉄道の建設に多くの企業が力を合わせております。
India and Japan's partnership is strategic and smart, powered by economic logic. We have turned shared interest into shared prosperity. India is the springboard for Japanese businesses to the global south. Together, we will shape the Asian century for stability, growth and prosperity. भारत की विकास यात्रा में जापान हमेशा एक अहम पार्टनर रहा है। मेट्रो से लेकर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग तक, सेमीकंडक्टर से लेकर स्टार्टअप्स तक, हर क्षेत्र में हमारी साझेदारी आपसी विश्वास का प्रतीक बनी है।
Reports suggest that Japanese firms are all set to invest up to $68 billion in India over the next 10 years. The visit comes at a very critical time as both nations are part of the Quad alliance alongside the US and Australia, and both, of course, are looking at inking trade deals with the US amidst mounting pressure from the Trump administration. Meanwhile, after Tokyo, the Indian Prime Minister will head to China, Shenzhen in particular, for a key summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Joining us on the broadcast is Major General A.K. Sivat. She's a defense expert from New Delhi. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out time sitting with us on NewsX World. Interesting development coming. We'd just seen how one of the top negotiators in Japan did not go to the US, cancelled his trip, and he stayed back even as the Indian Prime Minister coincidentally happened to visit Tokyo. And there's a lot of murmur about enhanced cooperation, especially in fields of AI, high-tech rail and semiconductors. What do you make of the future of India-Japan ties?
No doubt, Pia. As far as India-Japan ties are concerned, they are on the upswing. You know, the Japan industry, they have already now declared they will be investing about $68 billion in time to come. Now, there is a lot of coordination, cooperation taking place between India and Japan, especially on semiconductor, the critical minerals, then artificial intelligence, and also on the clean energy. And basically also to strengthen the supply chain. So the point which is there between India and Japan, we are a natural ally. We are basically a strategic partner in Quad also, which has got three basic principles: free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific, with that three basic issues, especially freedom of navigation, rule-based international order, and maintaining territorial integrity of all nations, including mainland nations. They have a problem with China in East China Sea, especially on Senkaku Island. So therefore, being a part of Quad, both the countries have got a very, very strong defense relationship also. Japan takes part on Malabar exercise. Now, as far as Japan is concerned, it is also doing two, three more things. You know, one thing is that as we are aware that bullet train already track is been under progress from Ahmedabad to Mumbai, which will take about 2-3 years more. But certainly what now Japan has agreed that they will do a joint production on basically the E10, which is the fastest train and modern train. This is far better than E3 and E5 as on today, and it is known as Shinkansen bullet trains, which will be jointly produced in India itself. That is a very important thing. Then another thing is unified complex radio antenna. This also is being jointly produced by India and Japan. And the third very important thing is a lunar polar exploration mission. You know that LUPEX, what is happening is that it will help us in our Chandrayaan 5. So therefore, the coordination and cooperation of Japan and India is of a paramount. Both very strong, you can say, democracy. Both are now showing, not basically going down as far as the US is concerned. The pressure tactics which is applied by Donald Trump as far as the signing of tariff deal is concerned. So free trade agreement will be only signed on the terms which is being given by India and Japan, not the US. So basically both are standing together. I suppose the relation between India and Japan will go further from here onward, especially in terms of artificial intelligence, which is very important. And the second thing is semiconductor, critical minerals, and then also you can find the transfer of technology which will take place, especially on the bullet train, and also multipolar, that antenna which will be also utilized basically for Chandrayaan So overall, it looks like that the relationship will be of a great value as far as India and Japan is concerned. And being a part of Quad, there is a lot of understanding on a defense matter, especially both the countries participate in Malabar exercise, which is now increasing every year. And we have a 2+2 meeting also with Japan every year. So overall, I say that India, Japan, this visit of Prime Minister Modi is going to be very historic visit.
Absolutely, and since you've mentioned the Quad, I'd like to ask you a quick follow-up on that. The Quad, of course, eyes are free and open, Indo-Pacific, but in recent times, we've seen a very crucial partner of the Quad, the United States, targeting New Delhi specifically, as it now claims that India is funding Russia's war. One of the advisors to the White House, Peter Navarro, has come out and stated that the war in Ukraine is Modi's war. So what do you make of the future of the Quad, even though India and Japan are now witnessing ties being taken to a new level, soaring to further heights? How do you think the recent economic strain between Washington and New Delhi could impact the Quad?
No doubt. See, as far as Donald Trump is concerned, he's a transactional leader. He's more of a businessman than the president. Though the Trump 1.0, you can, the administration India could understand. But as on today, the way he is now acting very hard as far as tariff is concerned, is put 50% tariff, blaming India for fueling war because it is helping out Russia in Russia-Ukraine war. We have told three things. We are saying we are not the only country which is taking oil from Russia. In fact, the largest is taken by China itself. Then also European Union taking, Turkey taking, Japan also taking. US itself has got a trade deal with it. So targeting India all alone is very unfortunate. But all said and done, it is my understanding that the relationship which have soared up between India and US will come onto the track because there is a back channel diplomacy going on. There may be a solution because see, US has to realize one thing, that what is their adversary is China, and if they have to counter China, they need India. It is in fact what can say India needs US, but US need India more than India needing US. So therefore, they not denying the fact. To me, it looks like that there will be some free trade agreement which will be signed, not immediately. It will take time, and I suppose the Quad meeting, which is to take place this year, end of this year in India, I will go through it because Quad is very, very important to all these four countries, whether it is India, Australia, US and Japan. And in case if you have to challenge the hegemony of China in these four, democracies have to come together. Unfortunately, the transitional leadership of Donald Trump has pushed us down. And as on today, if his behavior remains like this, then you will find it India going more closer to Russia and China, and the Quad will then not remain the way Quad now is there. It may happen. The meeting which is to take place end of this year may not take place. But I certainly still feel a hope that some good sense will prevail in Donald Trump and there will be some sort of free trade agreement in time to come.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. You've, of course, spoken about how Trump's actions are pushing India towards the Russia-China so-called axis, as experts claim. The STO meeting is going to be taking place in Shenzhen in China very, very soon. We will be keeping our eyes peeled for that as our senior executive editor is heading there on the ground. Meanwhile, we're shifting focus towards Thailand, where we're now learning the Constitutional Court has removed Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra from office. Judges found her guilty of ethical misconduct over a leaked phone call with Cambodia's former leader Hun Sen. The 39-year-old leader, who is the daughter of former Premier Thaksin Shinawatra, was accused of going to Cambodia at a time of tense border disputes. The scandal sparked a lot of outrage as just mere weeks after her call, there was a 5-day war between Cambodia and Thailand. Street protests had taken place against her, leaving her coalition hanging by a thread. Her dismissal marks the 5th time in 17 years that a Thai Prime Minister has been removed by the Constitutional Court. Deputy Premier Phumtham Wechayachai and the current cabinet will oversee the government in a caretaker capacity until a new Prime Minister is elected by the House, with no time limit on when that might take place. Joining us on the broadcast is Frank Han-chi. He's an anchor at PBS Thailand. Thank you so much for taking our time sitting with us on NewsX World. So what is likely to happen next? Will we see Thailand head to polls yet again, because she'd come to power just last year itself, late last year? And who are the likely PM candidates in such a scenario?
Yeah, let's take a step back and think at this point. Of course, the Prime Minister has been ousted this time by the Charter Court because of that contention and leaked phone call with Hun Sen, which is the former Prime Minister of Cambodia and right now Senate President of Cambodia too. That cause is really a big hit and major blow for Pheu Party, which is the coalition party in Thailand, because Charter Court here claimed that, stated that the negotiation tactics that Prime Minister Pham Shinawatra called Hun Sen as uncle and other sentences in the phone call have really violated ethical conduct for a politician. And of course, another part is the critics to the military, Thai military and border. In that sense, Charter Court judges say that this is showing the disunity of Thailand's politician, of course, the ruling party and the military. So that's why Charter Court this time filed and of course gave the verdict that the Prime Minister to be ousted from the post. And right now, it's what you said, what's next? This is pretty important because in Thailand's political system, during the election, each party has to give and nominate the prime ministerial candidates. And right now, for the ruling party, we only have one candidate left, which is Chai Kat-Tem City. But there's some rumors, of course, and some statement that Chai Kat-Tem, this candidate, his health condition is not that good for this post too. But other candidates that we can see, of course, from Hun Chai Party, which was a coalition party with alongside with Pheu Party. But right now, the party has changed its position to the opposition. Of course, the party leader is Anutin Chanwira, who was a very experienced politician in Thailand. So we have to see how this political storm forming at this moment. And as what you said, there's no time limit at this moment, but we have to see if that this interim government, of course, led by the acting Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai and other cabinet minister right now still on the seat, and until we have a new Prime Minister and a new cabinet list will come out too.
Indeed, and I wanted to ask about the Pheu and the Shinawatra family at large. What next for the party? What next with the family? They're already at the center of several high-profile cases as well. So how are they looking at navigating through this?
Yes, as what I said, of course, Pheu Party right now led by Shinawatra family. The leader at this time, of course, Penongtan Shinawatra, but West Maya. Behind is her father, Thaksin Shinawatra. But right now, of course, what I said, Thaksin Shinawatra already passed the first trial of the legal case last week, but he has to face the next one about the hospitalization in political hospital after his exile period, coming back to Thailand 2 years ago in September, early September there. So right now, I understand that, of course, according to political analysts, right now, Shinawatra family, no matter Thaksin or Penongtan, still wants to hold that power in Pheu Party and also, of course, organize and form and fortify Shinawatra's family and Pheu Party's strength in political sphere right now. But of course, what I said, next candidate, Prime Minister candidate for Pheu Party is Chai Kat-Tem City. And right now, of course, according to so many political analysts, they said that Pheu Party, Shinawatra family, they still wants the Chai Kat-Tem, this candidate, to become the Prime Minister in the near future, because right now, still, no matter it's political instability or economic slowdown right now, Putin party and the China family really aim to gain the public's trust back, because no matter it's the political stability in the country, which actually affects the economic momentum in the country too. No matter it's about entertainment complexes, what we always talk about digital wallet scheme right now, 20-baht electric train flat fare right now still in delay at this moment. So we still have to see that economic momentum with political stability in the country, and how China family and per-type coalition party can really formulate that and, of course, maneuver that economic momentum and political certainty in the country is the key, because political analysts and economists right now, people on the ground, business leaders, they really want certainty and stability in the country.
Absolutely. And one quick final question, since there is a coalition that is in place, and the magic number, in case there are polls that are called out, and the magic number of 247 needs to be achieved, are we likely to see some sort of horse trading take place in the near future?
Right, so what you said, magic number 247 in the lower house, this of course is the threshold to become a prime minister at this moment. But of course, that's what you said, right now it's a thin margin there. How can the party really form that 247 seats to push the next candidate, to become the prime minister is the key, because as what I said just before, that one of the main party in the opposition, which was the coalition party partner to JK party, holding a very significant number of the seats in the parliament right now, already they already moved to the opposition side. So of course, the rest of the coalition party right now, they have to really hold hands together, that like third party, whether it's Thaksin or Paetongtarn or other experienced politicians in the party, how can they really maneuver that political momentum in the lower house? We will see that very soon, because this interim government led by Kumtam Wechachak has stayed long on the surface.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for taking our time sitting with us on NewsX World as we track these very crucial developments. Viewers, with that, we're shifting focus away from Thailand towards Europe. Now, the European Union's foreign and defense ministers meet is all set to take place in Copenhagen in order to discuss key foreign policy issues. The talks are expected to focus on the Russia-Ukraine war and the situation in the Middle East. The agenda of the meeting is to support the Ukrainian defense industry even more effectively and thereby strengthening Ukraine's combat power in the conflict. This meeting is taking place when there are reports of fresh attacks on Kiev by Russian forces. Remember, just yesterday, 23 people had lost their lives in Kiev. Now, amidst these talks and murmurs of peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine and a possible trilateral that the Trump administration is trying to moot, the advances on the front lines remain active. Now, ahead of the meeting, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has emphasized upon the need for increased pressure on Russia, especially in light of ongoing attacks on Ukraine, including recent strikes on Kiev. Lithuanian Defense Minister Dovilė Šakalienė has also talked about peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. Let's listen in to what they had to say.
Of course, the main topic we have is Russia's war against Ukraine. We saw yesterday the huge attacks on Kiev. Also, European delegation was hit. Fortunately, nobody was hurt physically, but still, I mean, these attacks show that Putin is just mocking any kind of peace efforts that are made. So what we have to do is increase pressure on Russia, and this is really what they understand, the pressure.
Hopes of possible peace negotiations are at least naive. One will look what is happening in Ukraine, what just happened yesterday when 23 people were killed in Kiev, when diplomatic missions were bombed, when we see that all Putin is doing is really stalling, actually cheaply buying time to kill more people and to imitate sort of willingness to maybe stop his own murderous actions.
All right, viewers, you've heard what the European leaders have had to say. Joining us on the broadcast is Martin Saar-Erez, foreign affairs expert from Germany. Thank you for taking out time sitting with us on NewsX World. Interesting statements are coming in. We've just earlier in the day heard German Chancellor Friedrich Merz say that it is not possible that Russia and Ukraine come to the negotiating table, something that Donald Trump has been proposing ever since he met Putin in Alaska. Now you have these leaders, EU's foreign policy chief as well, stating that Putin's actions in Kiev, especially by targeting civilians, is mocking peace efforts and that Russia only understands pressure. There's been a lot of murmur over the last couple of days as well, as far as Budapest being eyed as a possible location for a trilateral. But could this even catalyze in the first place?
Absolutely. I think the European Union is skeptical towards the strategy that Donald Trump has been enforcing the last months. They feel that the US is no longer reliable and they need to take action by themselves. This very important meeting in Copenhagen shows that the European leaders are putting all of their efforts together to defend Ukraine against the Russian threat, and they're going to work together in terms of intelligence, in terms of budgeting, a solution for increasing the budget for the military, for defense. And I think Friedrich Merz is basically focusing on strengthening the European reaction towards the Russian threat instead of waiting for and being actually dependent on the US in these times of huge uncertainty.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us. We're tracking further developments. We're learning now that the E3, the UK, France and Germany have triggered the UN Snapback mechanism in order to reimpose sanctions on Iran, accusing it of deliberately violating the 2015 nuclear deal. This move follows stalled US-Iran talks and Tehran's increased uranium enrichment, which Western powers say lacks a peaceful justification. Iran, meanwhile, backed by Russia and China, is strongly opposing this step, calling it provocative and illegal. Meanwhile, China has now stepped in and warned that the snapback mechanism is not constructive and will undermine diplomatic efforts in order to resolve this issue. The Iranian nuclear issue is at a critical juncture. Let's listen in to what the Chinese ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakyun has to say.
伊朗核问题正处于关键十字路口，在安理会启动快速恢复制裁不具建设性，将破坏政治外交解决伊朗核问题的进程。
We've heard what the Chinese have had to say. Martin Saar-Erez still with us on the broadcast. Why, in your assessment, is the E3 now pushing and holding this ultimatum over Tehran at this moment? Because we've seen talks with the US completely break down. Then US struck 3 nuclear sites in Iran, but it was these 3 powers in Europe that stepped in and tried to take negotiations forward, but somehow it seems that talks have now broken down.
Yeah, the E3 countries are also waking up and realizing that Iran is not a country that you can rely on. It's not even ruled by a legitimate regime. It's been taken as a hostage by a absolutely crazy, lunatic, and theocratic regime which oppresses their own people. They're not willing to negotiate anything, and they cannot be trusted. I'm not wondering that China is actually supporting it, not because it's the right cause, but because China has a huge support, and China has a lot of influence in Iranian foreign affairs. They are at the same bloc. And basically, China wants to expand its power through Asia. right now I'm seeing that Europe is actually putting their efforts in order to mitigate the huge threat that Russia, China, and Iran are for the West right now. Not even because of Trump, but in general, Iran is not willing to do any agreement that actually gives them the freedom to carry out their agenda, which is basically the annihilation of Israel, taking over in geopolitical terms the Middle East and being the new superpower in the Middle East to rule their agenda. And this can be very dangerous. And I don't think these three countries of the E3 countries of Europe are willing to support or let happening.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking our time, joining us on the broadcast as we track these very crucial developments. Meanwhile, viewers, we're shifting focus to some breaking news coming in. We're learning that Russia has now accused the West of trying to turn Ukraine into a strategic provocateur on its border and has warned that Western security proposals for Kiev are now designed to contain Moscow and pull Ukraine into NATO's orbit. The Russian Foreign Ministry, in its briefing for today, has stated that such moves risk escalating tensions and could increase the likelihood of military conflict. Moscow has also insisted that any future security guarantees must be based on a single, unified concept that reflects Russia's concerns. All right, viewers, shifting focus away from Russia and towards the United States of America, we're now learning that workers from over 30 unions and organizations are marching in Washington, D.C. in order to denounce the Trump administration's federal policies. The presence of the National Guard and the ICE in the U.S. Capitol, as well as public employee layoffs. Workers say they are protesting against the Trump administration's record amongst workers and the federal surge in the national capital. Organizers cite administration maneuvers that have led to the district being stricken with one of the highest unemployment rates in the country, especially in the wake of mass firings by DOJ. This also comes as Trump signed an executive order earlier in the day limiting collective bargaining rights for federal unions in certain agencies. The rally is part of the nationwide Solidarity Season campaign that highlights corporate union busting and economic inequality. It marks the first one in the weekend of Labor Day demonstrations across the United States of America. All right, viewers, due to paucity of time, that's all the news that we are tracking. Stay tuned for more on NewsX World as we slip into a quick short break.